there. And they say that, but then they keep the system in place where all they got to do is go to tournaments in the summer to recruit their kids.
Yeah.
And then they've kind of lessened the role of the high school coach over the years, which
basketball is a totally different animal there.
It sure is. So anyway, I don't mean to talk about football the whole time, but when I was at St. Pius, I was also again, it was expected.
Yeah.
I was assistant football and head baseball and head basketball there. And one of the years that, and I'm just telling you this because you'll get a kick out of this, Larry Wilcox brought his staff over in the days before we could wear pads, like the 3 days. He brought his staff over from Benedictine, and without pads, just out there just putting it in, we ran the Flexbone one year, but we were lucky enough to have, because Larry Wilcox is kind of the guru of the Flexbone, and so he came and we put it in, and I loved that offense because, well, we had Joe Ritherow, who was my best. It was all-state basketball. Was also an all-state quarterback. So, and we ran in 80 years run together after 47 of them. Probably the fall of '88, we ran a whole season and didn't huddle up once before anybody else was doing that, and we just had hot colors for each quarter, and we would just say 3 colors, and the kids knew what play we were running because of the hot color. But we were doing that long before everybody else was doing it. So those are the kind of things, like when you get through a whole career like I have, you remember back to those things where you were like innovative, you know. And I in basketball wise, I'm still proud of, because I have coaches. I had a lady coach come up to me Monday and want me to teach her our press that we had at Grandview, which is kind of a hybrid run and jump, not really run and jump, but kind of a hybrid press. And so I get a kick out of that because we kind of were the first. The college teams were doing that.
Yeah,
it's funny. It's funny to me that, you know, Mike Anderson was doing it at Mizzou, and he had done it before Mizzou when he was at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. But now West Virginia is doing it, and everybody calls them Press Virginia, but it's really the same thing. I did hear Eric Martin, their assistant coach, speak a couple, or what is it now, like 3 years ago at the college Final Four in Phoenix, and I did get some new stuff that they're doing. But, so you know, that's always fun as you look back of how things change. One of the things I always talk about when I talk to older coaches, because I see some, we have this, Grandview has an alumni event, alumni teachers and coaches, every year in the fall. It was like a month ago, and we all meet and have lunch together, and all the old coaches are there. And one of the things I've talked about with Coach Draper, who was 2 coaches before me at Grandview. It was Draper and Bickham and then me. And when I was talking to Draper one time, we were talking about, we kind of learned, we did learn to coach before there was a 3-point line. And what everybody doesn't understand is that was different, because we taught kids to tell people to shoot if they were standing 20 feet from the basket. Shoot it, because it counts 2, and if you get it, okay, we'll get it out of the net and we'll go the other way. So that had to change. But then the other thing, which is kind of one of my claim to fame, 2 places where I was the head coach at Park College for 3 years, and I was there when the college game put the 3-point in, and I personally painted the 3-point. We had this discussion before we went on the air about the things you have to do when you're the head coach, and a lot of times you have to sweep the floor every day. Well, I was at Park College, and I personally had to put the 3-point lines down, and then I turn around, and my next stop along the coaching carousel was at St. Pius. And the high school game put the 3-point line in, and Coach Farris painted the 3-point lines there also. So, you know, little things like that you remember. And people probably wonder if old coaches just sit around and talk about games and, you know, playing against each other and big wins. But we talk about stuff like that because that's what's, you know, that's actually what you remember. You know,
I like to tell the story. You know, the only time coaching football, this year 17, and the only time I've ever had to paint a practice field, was the year the couple years I was GA in at Avila. And, because most high schools had turf at that time, or, the maintenance staff took care of the, field. But at the small college level, we didn't have anybody. And, I'm the GA, I'm the low guy. So it's like, hey, we're going to teach you how to do it. And that's your deal every week. Go out and paint the field.
Well, I was never a head coach in football, but I was an assistant coach 10 different years. I had 10 years of coaching in football. And every Thursday night that I coached football, I painted the field. So that's 10 times 10, wow. That's 100 fields, because you didn't have anybody. One of the plays, when I was at Grain Valley, the superintendent, I don't want to get anybody in trouble here, but the superintendent would come out and help paint the field, and one of the board members would come out and help the field. And the board member would show up in the back of his pickup. He had some iced teas on ice
there you go.
In the back of the pickup, and we would paint the field and have some iced tea and have a good old time every Thursday home game. So
that's awesome. I mean, those are the things that do stick out, over the years. Those little things that people don't see that coaches have to do, and it's like, if I don't do it, nobody else is going to do it.
Exactly.
So, it's just, hey, do you really want to have to sweep the floor? No, but you want it done right. So, hey, it's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Well, it's you don't know what coaching is until you've been in your position. I always say a Class 1 coach, because they're the athletic director, they are the basketball coach, a lot of times football coach, track coach for middle school and high school. And then they have to drive the bus on top of that. So, those are people that you really admire that do those type of jobs, and you can't do them long term. You just can't.
Well, my wife actually went on a trip to St. Louis when I was at Park. It was called Park College then. It's Park University now, but it was Park College then. And we came home in a snowstorm that we shouldn't have, but we didn't have the budget or the funds to stop and get a hotel, so we just trudged on. It probably took us I can't remember, but probably 6 hours to get from the regular 3.5 hour trip to get back to Kansas City. But been a lot of times you have to drive, and then of course in the recent years too, a lot of kids don't have rides. Mm-hmm. And so you give a lot of kids rides. The interesting thing is, and I don't know if your listeners even know this, but the state of Missouri, for years and years and years, just said, well, you really shouldn't be giving those kids rides.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they've changed this in Kansas, but before last year, the state of Missouri said, okay, you can give rides, but there's a way to register yourself and turn in your insurance and everything. So we are now registered, and we give rides.
Yeah.
But we've been doing it for 15 years anyway, because we're in the era where kids need rides. I mean, especially,
at Grandview, I know my short stint coaching over there, it was just, hey, sometimes on my way, there's 2 or 3 kids on the way, and you pick them up and get them to practice because, they didn't have a ride or whatever.
Or practice is over and the parents just don't show up.
And
it's so, here, I'll just take you home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
It's easier than sitting around for a couple hours while somebody tries to get a hold of a parent.
Yeah, absolutely.
But all those are, those little things like that. You can sit here and you can talk about your record and the big games and all that, but it's those things that you experienced along the way that made it and still keeps me going. I'm still coaching every day and giving it just as much gas as I've ever given it, and it keeps you young when you get involved with the situations and the kids and in the ways you get involved with them.
Yeah, so, I came to Grandview as a sophomore in, I don't know, it would have been probably 98, 99, somewhere in there. You were the assistant coach that first year that I was there. How many years had you been there previous to that?
I was Don Bickham's assistant from 97 to 99, and then he got the Blue Springs South job, which is where he actually played at Blue Springs before there was a Blue Springs South.
Yeah.
But his coach had gone to Blue Springs South, and then his coach had retired. Kind of like me, he retired the first time, but he's he's gone on to coach. He coached at Montrose, because the very first place he coached, his name's Gil Hanlon, The very first place he coached when he was coming up was a little tiny 1A town called Montrose.
Okay.
And then here about, I guess it's 3 years ago or so, some of his old friends from Montrose said, you ought to come. We got a good group, and we need a coach. You ought to come down and coach. So he did.
Man!
And he had they won district, but they got beat in the sectionals. And
okay.
But that's another. I think that's a really cool story because most of us, myself included, it would be hard for me to go back down to those schools again and coach because you get the advantage. I've always said when people ask me why I don't coach this or coach that, I always say I like to watch dunks. I'm a big fan of dunks, so I like to coach at places where you can do that.
Yes.
I spent my time at St. Pius where we had really good teams that couldn't dunk, so now I'm,
Yeah.
I want to get some kids that have some ups. I like that, and then usually those kids are also quick, and then you can press a little bit and run and get up and down a little bit, and that's what I like to do now, but. Didn't always. You have to coach to whatever your talent is. You have to coach to it. So that's the way it is on that's the way it is at most high schools. There are guys around Kansas City that seem to acquire players, but
Lee Summit West seems to acquire a lot of players.
I didn't say that. I'm in the Lee Summit School District.
I know,
and you would have to torture me to say anything bad about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But anyway. There used to be a joke about that was Grandview East.
Yeah, I've heard that
back in the day.
I heard that a few times when I was at Grandview. Yeah.
Back in some of my years there. But when I came there as a sophomore, like I said, you were the assistant, and then got the head coaching job when Coach Bickham left, and were there my last 2 years as junior and sophomore, and you were always a guy that I knew I wanted to coach at that time in my life, and I would watch. From a distance, I was not blessed athletically to be, a guy who could.
Wait now a minute. You played college basketball.
He did play college basketball. I saw
He
it.
did.
So
I watched
very
him.
well.
I watched him.
And Coach, are you responsible for that?
I at the time we actually talked about it tongue in cheek. Look, I produced a college player.
There you go.
Another one. Yeah,
another one. Add that to the list. But. No,
you sold yourself short there, Gary.
I was in the cheering section. It was amazing.
Yeah,
video of that?
No, I hope there's no video.
I don't think so. This is like before smartphones.
Yeah, it was way back.
And we had cell phones, but we didn't have like a smartphone. So not everybody's walking around with a camera.
Yeah, luckily.
Luckily
wish. For me, I do have a picture somewhere of me, in the team photo. Somewhere.
You should bring that in sometime.
I should.
You have it? You have it still?
I do. No, I found it.
We need to put that on the Wall of Fame behind you.
No.
Back there.
in front of these national champions. Yeah. Put Gary right there.
No. We did play a game against Northwest, so I did get to play on that floor, but we were down by I think 50. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You guys played Northwest.
We did play Northwest. It was a money game. It was a money game.
Yeah.
But, you were always a guy that kind of inspired me, and I felt like did it the right way. I mean, you coached the kids hard that were playing for you, but at the end of the day, everybody knew you cared about them. And I mean, I just feel like that's the way this should be done. And, I've now been in the profession myself, I mean, and even as a student, there are guys that don't do it that way. I mean, I'm sure you've encountered them too. That are there for just the wins or just the accolades and just want to do the fun stuff. And, honestly, loving on the kids and giving them their opportunities is, what keeps me coming back to it. I mean, and I know you're the same way.
Oh, absolutely. And, you can we've kind of already had this discussion, but you can be really proud of a kid that makes it to the NBA or to the NFL. But it's just as easy to be proud of. The kid that I'm probably the most proud of, you know him well, Alvin Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Tell a little story about Alvin. He went to Rolla.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't major in engineering, though. They had other degrees then. He majored in marketing. And he played ball for a couple of years, and then he quit playing basketball there. But he hung on there and got his degree from there. And he went to work for Cerner. And Alvin's still single. But the reason I point that out is Cerner about and I don't know if you're even aware of this, about probably 7 or 8 years ago now it's been, Cerner had this deal where they went to their employees and they said,